It started with her laugh. Not the laugh I fell in love with. Not that I ever really had a chance to fall into anything. No, this laugh was sharper, meaner. The kind of laugh that doesn't wait for anyone else to catch up because it's not for joy. It's for dominance. And the entire room followed. I was holding a plastic cup of flat soda, sitting dead center in our own living room while my wife recreated my failed attempt at fixing the kitchen sink like it was a stand-up routine. And then he actually Googled how to man up and fix a leak. I swear, Curtis, come on. Tell them that's what you typed, right? She mimicked typing on a keyboard, crossed her eyes, and everyone around her howled. She didn't mention how I was trying to fix it at 2 a.m. after working a double shift, or how I had literally bled into that sink when the wrench slipped, or how I did it because she said she wanted to cook more and the dripping noise drove her nuts. None of that made the script, I guess. They laughed like it was a Netflix special. Meanwhile, I sat frozen, smiling somehow. That fake, tight lip kind of smile that makes your jaw later. I wasn't new to the humiliation. It started small. Tiny digs at how I chewed, rolling her eyes when I spoke, making fun of my playlist when her friends were over. "Don't let Curtis DJ unless you want to cry into your drinks," she'd say. Everyone laughed then, too, and I told myself it wasn't that bad. She was just playing, just joking, just Ray being Ray. I told myself that so often it started to sound like a prayer I didn't believe in. But something about that night changed everything. Because as they laughed, I noticed something new. They didn't look at me with pity. They looked at me with disgust, like I was the stray mutt Ray had pitted long enough. And now they were just waiting for her to finally let go of the leash. I excused myself quietly. No one noticed, not even Rye. I sat in the dark on the back porch, cold plastic chair digging into my shoulder blades while their laughter echoed through the glass door. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel sad or hurt. I felt nothing. Like I'd become exactly what they saw me as. Nothing. The next morning, Rye didn't mention the joke or the party. She just asked if I could VMO her some cash because she accidentally ordered the wrong size boots again. I nodded and sent it. That was a week ago. Since then, I've been sleeping on the couch to help my back. Since then, I've been going to work early and staying late. Inventory audit. I told her there is no audit. Since then, I've opened a P.O. box, bought a prepaid phone, transferred my name off the lease. Quietly, softly, silently. And now tonight, the same woman who stood in a circle of our friends and made me a punchline is calling me over and over again in tears. Why? Because I didn't come home. Because I turned off my phone. Because I left one note on the fridge. You didn't notice me while I was here. Let's see how loud the silence feels now. And because she just realized this time the joke's over, she didn't call just once. She called 9 times, then switched to texting, then sent a voice note that sounded like she'd been crying for hours. Her voice raw and strange, saying, "Curtis, where are you? Please, this isn't funny. I'm scared. Just tell me you're okay." I listened to it twice. Not to hear the words. I knew the words didn't matter. I listened to the sound beneath them. The quiet realization creeping in that something was slipping out of her hands. And this time, I wasn't the one begging. That night when I left, I didn't do it like the dramatic husbands in movies. No slam doors, no shouting matches, no suitcase rolling down the driveway in the rain. I folded my work shirts neatly, packed only what I needed, left everything she bought me, and I mean everything. Clothes, coffee mug, Bluetooth speaker, the coat she picked out on her birthday shopping spree, gone. I didn't even take the cologne. she said made me smell like someone who finally mattered. Yeah, I left the house looking like I just stepped out for a quick errand. But this wasn't a break. This was me unraveling years of silence into one long, quiet goodbye. Funny thing is, the first place I went was the cheapest motel in town. The walls were thin, the heater rattled, and the front desk clerk looked like he didn't care if I checked in or vanished completely. It was perfect. I laid on that bed and stared at the ceiling fan spinning like my thoughts. No TV, no music, just me and the ugly realization that I had wasted the best parts of myself on someone who thought I was her audience, not her equal. She once told her friends with me sitting right there that I was practically invisible in crowds. Said it like it was a charming quirk, but what she really meant was that I didn't draw attention to myself, didn't fight back, didn't challenge her. And you know what? She was right. I was invisible, because I thought staying quiet was how you kept love alive. Turns out staying quiet just makes it easier for them to erase you. But here's the twist. She didn't see coming. The quieter I got, the more she started noticing the silence. I stopped asking how her day went, stopped warming up her almond milk like she liked, stopped responding to her passive-aggressive digs with anything more than a blank stare. And suddenly, she was the one doing the chasing. 3 days before I left, she pulled me into the bedroom while I was folding laundry, told me she missed me, said she felt like I was drifting. Her exact words were, if I wanted to be alone in a room, I could have just married a mirror. I looked her dead in the eye and said, maybe the mirror would treat you better. It was the first time I saw her flinch. I wanted to believe that moment meant something, that maybe she finally saw what she'd done. But then, not 2 hours later, I overheard her on the phone with one of her friends saying, I think Curtis is going through another one of his little sulk phases. He'll get over it. He always does. That's what pushed me to finally move. Not the years of mocking, not the dismissive glances, not the jokes told at my expense in rooms where I was supposed to feel safe. It was that sentence, he always does. It was the final stamp on the permission slip she wrote for herself to keep treating me like a joke. Because she was so sure I'd never leave, that I'd always crawl back like I have before, like the good little shadow I'd become. But not this time. Now she's the one standing alone in the living room, staring at the door like it might swing open with me on the other side. Now she's the one listening to silence so thick it feels like a scream. Now she's the one who can't sleep. She tried calling my mom yesterday, told her she's worried sick. My mom just said he's a grown man, Rye. If he's quiet, it's probably because you didn't listen when he spoke. That's when she really started to spiral. And me? I'm still quiet, still not answering, still watching from a distance. But I have a plan, because when a man who's been silent for years finally decides to speak, the world tends to listen. The strangest part about disappearing is how quiet the world becomes. It's not just the physical silence. It's the sudden stillness of not having to brace for the next insult disguised as humor, or the way your chest no longer tightens when you hear your partner's voice call your name in that tone that makes your stomach twist. The world didn't stop when I left Ray. It just finally stopped spinning for everyone but me. It's been 4 days now since I walked away from that house. 4 days since she found my note on the fridge. I kept it short. 7 words. Actually, you finally made me invisible for good. I figured if she loved performances, she could interpret that one however she liked. Since then, she's been unraveling. First the calls, then the crying voicemails, then the angry ones. This isn't you, Curtis. You don't do this. And then today, the part that caught me completely off guard. She showed up at my job. I watched her from the break room window, standing just outside the parking lot with her arms crossed and sunglasses hiding her eyes like a cheap disguise. She stood next to my truck, like she expected me to come jogging over like a dog who forgot what the leash felt like. She even brought a coffee, the one with oat milk and cinnamon she used to hand me when she wanted something. That alone made my chest ache in a way I wasn't ready for. But I didn't go out there. I sat. I waited. I let her stand there in the Texas sun for a full 20 minutes before she finally gave up and drove off in that little white coupe she always insisted was too artistic to park in a straight line. After my shift, I checked the messages again, 8 more since lunch. One said, "If this is about the party, I already said I was sorry." Another just said, "You're really hurting me now. I hope that's what you wanted." And the last one, "You're punishing me for being me. You knew who I was when you married me." That one hit harder than I expected because she was right. I didn't know who she was. But I thought my love for her was enough to outshine the parts of her that cut too deep. I thought if I stayed long enough, supported her enough, bent far enough, she'd one day look at me with the same respect she had for her friends, her work, her art. But respect was never on the table, only control. And I gave it to her like it was a gift. The worst part is, I think she truly believes she's the victim in all this. In her mind, I'm the one who changed, who got distant, who withdrew, who lost his sense of humor. That's what she's probably telling her friends now. The same ones who laughed when she made me the punchline again and again. I wonder if they're laughing now, or if they're finally seeing what she's become without me standing beside her to absorb the fallout. I've been staying at my coworker Aaron's place, crashing on a mattress in his unfinished guest room. He doesn't ask questions, just throws me a beer after work and lets me be. It's the first time I've felt any sort of peace in years. No tiptoeing around someone else's moods. No pretending I'm not hurt. No performing. I caught myself smiling yesterday. Not a full one, not yet. But it was real and quiet, like a whisper between 2 loud chapters. I don't know where this story ends yet. I don't know if Ray will stop trying or if this is just the beginning of her unraveling. But I do know one thing now with absolute clarity. She expected me to be sitting there waiting. She expected me to fold again like always. But when she came home, I was gone. And the man who left wasn't the same man she walked over for so long. I may still be quiet, but I'm not coming back. I used to believe love was something you protected. You kept it close. You didn't speak ill of it even when it bruised you. You stayed quiet. You adjusted. You forgave. That's what I did with Rye for years. I convinced myself that patience was the higher road, that real love meant tolerating discomfort, maybe even pain if it kept someone else happy. But now I see it for what it really was, a slow, quiet erasure of myself, one apology at a time. It's been a week since I left the house. I haven't returned once, not even to grab the leftover boxes I stashed behind the dryer. Let her trip over them. Let her wonder. I needed distance, not closure. Closure assumes something respectful was broken. What we had, it was built on disrespect, wrapped in glitter. She still doesn't know where I am. She's tried calling every mutual friend, my boss, my sister, even the pastor from the church we used to go to back when we were trying to look like we had it all together. Each of them, bless their awkward hearts, told her the same thing. He's safe, and he doesn't want to be found right now. That last part makes me feel more human than I felt in a long time. Last night, Rye left a voicemail I didn't expect. She was quiet, almost breathless. Curtis, I came home from work and the house was so quiet. I swear I thought someone had died. There's no coffee brewing, no keys on the counter, no damn socks on the hallway floor. It's like you were never even here, and it's driving me insane. I keep thinking you're going to walk through the door, and then I remember you're gone. You really left. You left, and you didn't even yell first. What kind of man just vanishes like that? I sat on Aaron's back porch in the dark, that message playing on loop in my mind. And for the first time in forever, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was surreal. After all the belittling, all the mockery, all the nights, she made me feel like background noise in my own life. Now she's haunted by the sound of nothing. Let me paint a picture of what she's used to. She'd come home and find her dinner in the oven, the dishwasher running, the lights dimmed because she said harsh lighting gave her headaches. I'd ask about her day and she'd give me 5% of it before diving into a tirade about someone at work or something one of her flaky friends did. I'd nod, smile, validate. I was her sounding board, her safety net, her emotional trash can, all rolled into one man with tired eyes and a bruised soul. And now she's realizing what it feels like to stand in the spotlight with no one there to clap. Aaron told me something tonight. We were drinking on the porch and he looked at me and said, "You're a ghost who came back to life, man. It's weird watching you blink like you're seeing the world for the first time." He's right. I am waking up slowly. And every time Ray tries to drag me back with guilt or nostalgia or one of those, I never made it texts, it only confirms how far gone I am. She said in one message, "I only joked about you because I thought we were secure. Because I thought you knew how much I loved you. Loved me. You don't humiliate people you love. You don't turn your husband into a character in a sitcom just to get cheap laughs from people who wouldn't throw him a life preserver if he were drowning. You don't smirk after every cutting remark and say, 'Lighten up.' It's funny. What she loved wasn't me. It was the control, the ability to mock me, bend me, mold me, and still have me there every night, folding her laundry, kissing her cheek, laughing with her at myself. I've stopped responding entirely now. She sent 3 emails. One of them even said she's considering therapy. That one almost got to me. Almost. But then I remembered the look on her face the night she mimicked my voice in front of 10 people. Friends, strangers. And they laughed. I remembered the way she looked back at me after the joke, not with regret, but with satisfaction, like she was proud. That memory is a boundary now, and I don't step over it. I'm still in that tiny guest room, still drinking bad coffee in the morning, and watching the same 3 shirts rotate through my week. But I feel lighter. Like for the first time in years, I'm living in a space where my presence isn't treated like an afterthought. Let Ray perform for her reflection. Now the audience has left the building. Ray's voice showed up somewhere I didn't expect. Today on a speakerphone call I never answered. It was her friend Chelsea calling from an unknown number, probably thinking I'd pick up out of curiosity. I didn't. I just let it ring until the voicemail kicked in. And then I stood there holding my breath as I heard Chelsea's voice say, "Curtis, I don't know what's going on between you two, but Ray's really falling apart. She hasn't been to work. She's not eating. She cries whenever your name comes up. Just call her, please." I didn't delete the voicemail. I didn't replay it either. I just stood in my borrowed bedroom with a towel still around my neck from the shower, and I let the weight of it press into my lungs because, for a moment, I felt something close to guilt. Something like, what if I'm being cruel? What if this is too much? But that moment passed quickly because I remembered. I remembered the night Rai called me harmless in front of her coworkers at the bar after her promotion. I was standing right there. I brought flowers. I wasn't even invited to the after party, but I showed up anyway. And when she introduced me, she said, "This is Curtis, my husband. He's well. He's basically the reason I get to do what I love. He's harmless. Harmless. Not supportive, not selfless, not loyal. Harmless. Like I was a dull butter knife on the counter. Not threatening enough to fear. Not valuable enough to admire. Just there. So no, I don't feel guilty. I feel clear. I'm learning something new about silence. Not the kind she used to accuse me of. The passive kind. The avoidant kind. No. This is the kind that speaks louder than any words. This silence says, "I see what you did, and I'm not playing along anymore." Erin came home tonight and told me Rai had been by the warehouse again. This time she waited in her car for nearly 2 hours. No calls, no notes. Just waiting, like she thought I'd come walking out the door and drop to my knees in forgiveness. That's the image she's used to. Curtis the pushover. Curtis the understanding one. Curtis who doesn't raise his voice or pack his things or draw lines. But that Curtis is gone. He died quietly. No funeral, no flowers, no obituary. Just faded out like a radio station on a long drive out of town. Later, I got a message from her mother. Her mother. We haven't spoken much in the last 2 years, ever since Ray started telling her I was emotionally cold and difficult to inspire. But this message was different. It said, "I don't know what happened, but I do know she's realizing things too late. I'm sorry she hurt you, Curtis. I truly am." That one stayed with me because it was the first time someone in Ray's circle acknowledged there was hurt. For years, I was made to feel like I was overreacting, like I was the overly sensitive husband who couldn't handle a strong woman, like my silence was weakness instead of survival. But now they're seeing it slowly, quietly, the way bruises show up after the impact fades. Ray tried calling again. This time I did answer, but I didn't speak. I just let her voice come through the speaker. She whispered, "Curtis, are you there? Please just say something. Anything." And I didn't. I sat on the edge of that creaking mattress, phone in my hand, heart racing. But I didn't say a word. Because what could I say? That I forgave her? That I wanted to come home and laugh at her jokes again while she chipped away at what was left of me? No. My silence wasn't a punishment. It was protection from her, from the version of me she created, from the man I became just to keep the peace in a war I never started. I ended the call without a word, and this time I didn't cry. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally starting to hear my own voice again. Not out loud, not yet. But deep down, beneath the noise she used to fill every room with. She wanted attention. She can have all the attention she wants from the echoes in that quiet house, from the curious stares of friends who were finally starting to ask questions. As for me, I'm not answering. Not yet. It's strange how quickly people change their tone when the one they used to mock finally walks away. I saw it on their faces this morning. Her friends, I mean, when I stopped by the cafe near the warehouse just to grab a coffee and they happened to be there. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't avoiding. I just didn't expect them. But when I stepped inside and their eyes landed on me, the ear shifted. There was no laughter this time, no smirks, no whispered jabs. Just a silence so thick it seemed to mute the music playing overhead. One of them, Jaime, the same one who once told Rai at a dinner party that she was brave from marrying someone so emotionally safe, actually had the nerve to say, "Curtis, you okay, man? We've been worried." Worried. I didn't even answer, just grabbed my coffee, nodded, and walked out. Not out of spite. I just didn't owe them anything anymore. They'd sat through years of her cruelty and called it comedy. They let her turn our marriage into material for small talk, and they laughed because it was easier than calling her out. Now they want to act concerned now that the jokes are gone and she's unraveling. I heard from Erin later that Ray hadn't been back to work all week. She's been missing deadlines, canceling meetings, ghosting people. She even showed up at our old neighbor's house, Mrs. Kendricks, the kind widow who used to drop off banana bread once a month just to talk. The poor woman didn't know what to say. She called me afterward and said she kept asking what you were like when I saw you last, like she didn't even know you anymore. She doesn't. That's the point. The man she knew was trained, polished by her criticisms, softened by her expectations, muted by her spotlight. That version of me, the Curtis who stayed in his lane, smiled at the right time, apologized for things he didn't do, is gone. And now Ray is surrounded by the very silence she used to wish for when she rolled her eyes and said, "You talk too much when you're nervous." You know what's funny? I used to beg her to talk to me, to open up, to tell me what was wrong when she came home fuming after work or sat in the dark pretending she wasn't crying. I beg for connection. Now she's screaming into a void of unanswered texts and voicemails. Now she's the one pacing the living room we used to share, wondering how someone so harmless could leave such a massive hole. She left a note on my car last night tucked under the windshield wiper, written in that sharp, looping handwriting I used to trace with my fingers when we were still new. It said, "I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know you were hurting that bad. Please just talk to me. Please." I held that note in my hands for a long time. It smelled like her perfume. Faint, but still there. I read the words over and over until they stopped meaning anything. Because you know what stuck with me more than the apology? The fact that she waited until I was gone to realize she was holding a real person. A living, breathing human being who bled every time she laughed at him. But I'm not cruel. I'm not out for revenge. I don't want her to suffer. I just want her to finally see the damage she did when she used my love as a doormat and called it humor. I want her to feel the depth of the silence she created when she chose applause over connection. And now that silence is eating at her. She called again today, but this time she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just said, "I get it now. I do. I thought making fun of you was harmless. I thought you'd never leave. But I hear the emptiness in this house now, and it's louder than your voice ever was." Then she hung up, and I didn't call back because some realizations are meant to sit quietly, to burn gently, and to change everything. There was a knock at the door tonight, not a text, not a call. An actual knock, sharp, uneven, frantic. Erin wasn't home. I was sitting on the floor with a half-eaten microwave dinner trying to convince myself I like this new kind of freedom. The knock sent my stomach straight into my shoes. I didn't have to look. I already knew it was Ray. I stayed frozen for a moment. The TV hummed in the background, but I couldn't hear it anymore. My breath was shallow. My hands were damp, and for the first time since leaving, I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was about to step back into something I just barely escaped from. But I opened the door anyway. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her makeup was smudged, hair tied back in a way that wasn't messy cute, just tired. She was holding something, my old hoodie, the gray one she used to sleep in when she was sick, back before everything got so twisted. She didn't ask to come in. She just stood there searching my face like she didn't recognize it. And I couldn't blame her. I didn't recognize her either. Or maybe I finally saw her clearly for the first time. "I'm not here to make excuses," she said. Her voice was hoarse-a-row. "I just need to say something." I nodded slowly but didn't move aside. She didn't ask me to. She went on. "You were always there, Curtis. You were always there, even when I didn't deserve it. And I thought that made you weak. I thought the silence meant you didn't feel things as deeply as I did. But now I'm sitting in that house alone, and I can't breathe in the quiet. It's everywhere." She was crying by that point, but quietly. Not the dramatic sobbing I'd seen in our fights. This was smaller, realer. She clutched the hoodie tighter and said, "I made you into a joke because I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I wanted people to think I had it all under control, that I was funny, strong. But all I did was tear you down to build myself up. And now, I give anything just to hear you ask me how my day was. Just once." She looked up. Her eyes were rimmed with red. "Please come home. We can start over." I waited. I let the silence sit between us, not out of spite, but because I didn't trust myself to speak right away. My heart was pounding. Part of me wanted to wrap her up, bring her inside, tell her it was okay and that I'd missed her too. And I had. God help me. I had. But then she said it. "I'm going to tell them you had someone else," she blurted suddenly, her voice shaking. "If you don't come back, I'll tell everyone that you left me for someone else, that you cheated. Because they already don't get it, Curtis. They don't understand why you're being so cruel, and I can't stand looking like the bad guy anymore." My breath caught. I just stared at her. She realized what she'd said, tried to backtrack. "I didn't mean it like that. I'm scared. Okay? I'm terrified. I thought we were forever, and now I can't even sleep without imagining you with someone else." But it didn't matter. The damage was already done. It wasn't about love. It never was. Not really. This was about image, control, manipulation. Even in her apology, she was calculating, managing perception, planning the narrative. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just said, "Thanks for coming." But I think this proves I made the right choice. Then I closed the door. She stood there for a while. I watched her shadow through the peephole. Eventually, she left the hoodie on the porch and walked away. I picked it up an hour later, folded it neatly, placed it in a box with the rest of her apologies. It's sitting in the trunk of my car now, along with everything else I never want to carry again. You know what hurts most? Not the betrayal, not the jokes, not the loneliness. It's knowing that even when she cried, even when she begged, she still couldn't tell the truth without twisting the knife. Some people don't want reconciliation. They want control dressed up in regret. It's been 27 days since I walked out of that house. 27 days since I stopped trying to be heard by someone who only ever listened for the punchline. And tonight, for the first time in years, I sat under an open sky and didn't feel the need to shrink myself. The last time I saw Rai was at the door. I haven't heard from her since. No more calls, no more notes. No messages from friends asking what happened. The noise just stopped. At first I feared the silence. I thought it would crush me, but it didn't. It opened something instead. It let in the sound of my own voice. Uncertain, quiet, still shaking sometimes, but mine. And then something strange happened. A few days ago, I got an email from Chelsea, of all people. It simply said, "She's moved out. The house is empty. Thought you should know." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, but I did drive by just once out of curiosity. She was right. The house was dark. The porch lights were off. The wind had knocked over a few flower pots she used to fuss over every weekend. Her car was gone. No sign of her. Just stillness. I sat there in the car for a long time, and instead of pain, I felt something unexpected. Relief. I didn't miss the space. I didn't miss the memories. I missed who I thought I was supposed to be. The man who kept trying, kept compromising, kept sacrificing little pieces of himself just to make things easier for someone else. But now I see what love isn't. It's not sacrifice without return. It's not endurance without respect. And it's not staying simply because you're afraid of what leaving will look like. I've started writing again. I used to do that back in high school before life got noisy. Little things, thoughts, memories, fragments of stories. I even bought a Real journal, not a notes app. There's something healing about ink on paper, tangible, real, like my voice finally taking up space again. Aaron's been incredible. He never pries, just hands me coffee in the mornings and asks if I want to help him work on his old truck. I always say yes, even though I don't know a damn thing about engines. It's not about the truck. It's about having space to be, to grow, to laugh without being afraid it'll be turned into a monologue later. And tonight I took a walk. No destination, just the sound of my footsteps and the wind pushing through the trees. At one point, I passed a little bookstore on the corner. The lights were warm inside. A woman was sitting behind the counter flipping through a book, totally lost in it. She looked up, smiled, just a small one, and went back to reading. I don't know why that moment struck me so deeply. Maybe because she didn't ask anything of me. She didn't expect me to entertain her or apologize or explain. She just saw me, nodded, and returned to her world. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a ghost in someone else's story. I felt like a man beginning his own. No drama, no twist. Just a quiet, steady peace settling into the parts of me that had been at war for far too long. I won't say I'm healed. That's not how it works. But I will say this. I'm free. And the man I'm becoming, he's someone worth